Could you explain what majoritarianism is according to you, and why do you believe it is problematic?
Now, what happens? There are social theories, Western social theories, and they feel that majority always oppresses the minority. So, therefore, the minority, they call it structural violence and other names, but the idea is minority is always oppressed.
Cultural Marxism, as you discuss it in your book, and how it relates to the origin and evolution of liberalism.
This is an old idea. In 1977 or so, one Polish philosopher, historian, Leszek Kolakowski, he published a book, and there he discussed how Marxism, the original, it is a kind of, as we know, it's a class struggle between the haves and have-nots based on economics, and then it was put in the cultural sphere by Gramsci.
What specific principle or values do you prescribe for achieving social harmonies, and how do they differ from these Western social theories like liberalism?
So my prescription is Satya and Ahimsa. The Buddha said Pragya and Karuna. Then if you go down the line, Mahatma Gandhiji, problem with a little bit to his idea is, a lot of the times Gandhiji's Ahimsa was not based on our own experience. It is a very theoretical idea. Those who say equality, they do not really practice.
Differentiated between racism and casteism.
So basically it is a linear theory. It is displacing the other races. So it's the theory is whites will grow because they have superior gene or whatever it is. The other races will go down. If you look at casteism, what is it? The Brahmins.
Namaste all the Sangam Talks viewers. Welcome to today's session. Today we have Kaushik Gangopadhyay ji with us. He is an accomplished economist holding a PhD from the University of Rochester in 2007 and currently serving as a professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, with a strong publication record in prestigious international journals and experience in co-editing a book with Springer Wellrag. Kaushik ji brings a wealth of expertise to his work. Outside academia, he is known for his insightful articles in popular outlets like DNA, First Post, Swarajya and Matrabhumi. His latest book, The Majoritarian Myth, How Unscientific Social Theories Create Disharmony, is our discussion topic for today. It challenges conventional perspectives on societal dynamics, offering a fresh take rooted in empirical evidence and rigorous analysis. In this book, Kaushik ji brilliantly breaks the myth that majoritarianism is the cause and driver of ill tolerance in society. The commonest analogy that he has used is that of people blaming the driver of a bigger vehicle in any accident without doing any rational analysis of the true situation. Welcome again, Kaushik ji. Welcome to this session today.
Namaste, Namaste Akshay ji for having me here, and Namaste to all the listeners and all the well-wishers of the Sangram Talks.
So Kaushik ji, my first question is about your subtitle from your book. It talks about disharmony in society, and you also argue that Western social theories rather than Hindu nationalism or Hindutva that is responsible for societal disharmony in India. That is, Western social theories are responsible. Can you elaborate on how these theories contribute to polarization and discord in society?
Very interesting question. You know what? Most of the people around me in my workplace and society I live in, they are liberals. So what happens is that they often bring up this topic of polarization in India, and eventually the conclusion comes very quickly, simply, drastically. It is the Hindu nationalism, Hindutva, that is responsible for all the polarization in India. Usually the topic goes to some other direction. Now the thing is, I take their talk very seriously. I just don't take it as a gossip or kind of as a proposition to be acknowledged and nodded. Now let's take it really seriously. If really Hindutva is doing all this polarization in India, then if there is no Hindutva, there would not be any polarization, right? That's how the cause and effect works in a science. Now if you go to America, right, where is Hindu nationalism? Yeah? Now, but if you look at the polarization in America, it is way bigger then what is the situation in India? It is a much more homogeneous country than in India. But if you look at the polarization in America, it is, so there are two studies I have quoted in my book. One study is a long-term study. It spans actually 4 or 5 decades from 1970s onwards till today. It is done by, not today, it's like, it ends I think 2017 or 18. It was done by economists from very reputed schools, Stanford and Cornell, if I remember correctly. And there they have shown that basically polarization in America sharply went up, and the cause is political only. That's where it stops at, right? And we all know that from 1970s onwards, the tenets of modern left liberalism, that is called liberalism generally, they are taught in American universities and other places. And also, if you look at this Wall Street Journal, they have done a kind of a survey, 2000 compared to 2019 and 2023, 4 years. Before, 80% people used to say that tolerance for other opinions is very important. Now that number from 80%, it has fallen to 58%, right? Big fall when the high priests of liberalism are in power in America. So definitely America is polarizing. What is the explanation the Hindutva accusers will give us? No, well, they might say, well, this is a problem of religious fanaticism. America, there is a Christian fundamentalist. No, first and foremost, Christian fundamentalists, if anything, they are going down, not going up. But let's take them. I give them a chance. Okay, if Christian fundamentalists are the problem, okay, let's go to another country where there is neither Hindu nationalist nor Christian fundamentalist, and that country is Netherlands. It is most of the people, I think more than half of the people in Netherlands, they do not call themselves belonging to any religion. So more than half are atheists. And in Netherlands also polarization is drastically going up. So there is a leader who is called, thought to be political pariah. His name is Geert Wilders. He actually got, he won the maximum amount of seats in the parliament there, right? So again, big polarization happening there. And then, how would you then explain it? But I can see one thing, all these 3 countries, India, America, Netherlands, it is the liberal ideas that are taught in every educational institution, and that, this is a simple conclusion is, let's examine their ideas. Are they really doing social harmony or not? And that is what exactly I have done. I have taken up one of their ideas and discussed in my book.
So Kaushik, my next question is again from your book. You discuss majoritarianism as a concept. Could you explain what majoritarianism is according to you, and why do you believe it is problematic? And also another question linked to it, what role does global media coverage play in perpetuating this myth against India or Hindus in India?
Okay. Now, of course, it's a very, very important question to answer. So first, let's understand what is majoritarianism. So majoritarianism, if you go dictionary meaning, it basically means that country is run by the wishes of the majority without taking into consideration the minority. Now, what happens? There are social theories, Western social theories, and they feel that majority always oppresses the minority. So therefore, the minority, they call it structural violence and other names, but the idea is minority is always oppressed. So if the country is run by the wishes of the majority, that's a problem by itself, regardless of whether any problem is there or not. Now, I will give you an example. 7th October last year, 2023, there is a big strike against Israel by the Hamas terrorists, right? We are all aware of many hundreds of people, maybe 1,500 or so people died, and there's a pathetic barbarity we have seen in these attacks, right? Now, the moment it happened, so I'm not going to go into the Israel's response, 9th October or so. I mean, it's a nuanced perspective. People can hold different opinions, whether Israel is right or wrong in being so further. So I'm not going there. But I am talking about before Israel started anything. So between 7th October and 9th October, there are celebrations in American universities. In one Ivy League university in Cornell, I saw a professor saying, well, you see, there is always violence against the minority, against these Arabs, and now Hamas killed so many people. So they have actually done a counter violence and that leveled up the violence sphere. So he is justifying murder of hundreds of people based on these theories. If you look at the global media, most of the media are often go by this idea of majoritarianism. Actually, the idea they call it counter majoritarianism. So basically, because there is majoritarianism, they have to actually always be biased against the majority in their news coverage. So I have given in my book, I have given examples. There is a Akhlaq from Uttar Pradesh in 2015 or so. He was killed by a mob for having beef in his house. Really pathetic incident, and it was got a lot of traction in the global media. But around the same time, another Hindu youth, his name is Prashant Pujari in Karnataka, I think, he was also killed, and for his activism against cow slaughter. Again, another religious intolerance, right? But if you look at the global media, Akhlaq's incidence has like almost like 13-14 times more reports in global media compared to the Prashant Pujari's case. And that's one aspect. And second aspect is the headlines of Akhlaq was India going to be Nazi Germany and all these kind of things, just for one incident. And in case of Prashant Pujari, it is almost blamed on the Prashant itself. Well, this guy was doing some cow activism, I mean, you know, it's bound to happen, sort of. I mean, they have not said bound to happen, but the tone was like that. So then this is the idea of the majoritarianism, right? I mean, in their idea. So because the majority is dominating in their coverage, they have to do in the other way around, right? There is nothing personal about it for them. For them, this is the basic state of the affairs of the society, and they are doing the good thing to promote harmony, and that's why they have to always highlight. So any atrocity committed on the minority by the majority, and always put it, you know, any atrocity done by the minority on the majority, they have to put it under the carpet. So that is kind of the idea. So they are doing it with good intention. I am not blaming them for any malintention. They are doing it with good intention, but that's the idea. And if you look at even this is one incident I talked about. There are big incidents, right? For example, we know there is a big attack on the Kashmiri Pandits in the 1990 or so, and many hundreds died, and basically more than 1 lakh people at least they migrated out of the valley, right? And so then basically all these people, then if you look at the global media, their mentions are there, but not too high. 15-16 times more mentions are there about the Gujarat violence in 2002. Now Gujarat violence 2002 was more nuanced. No Kashmiri Pandit killed any Kashmiri Muslim. But in Gujarat violence, well, it's possible, the official record wise, more Muslims definitely died, but also there are hundreds of Hindus, they also died. So it was not really as one-sided as the Kashmiri Pandit genocide, right? But still, it is, if you look at the case, it is not mentioned so much, much way low, right? And then secondly, Kashmiri Pandits actually migrated out because they could not sustain. But if you look at Gujarat, that is not the case. Basically, a Muslim proportion in the population, it has actually gone up after that. Between 2001 and 2011, it has gone up according to the census. There is actually one person I know, Kutubuddin. He came to Kolkata because he felt that time he was the icon, right? And he kind of felt miserable. But then eventually after 1 year or two, he actually went back again to Gujarat and started his business there. I recently saw his interview. He says he's all right there. So the point I'm trying to say that this is the idea of majoritarianism, and it is practiced in media.
But sometimes I wonder, why is this idea of majoritarianism is only applied on India and Hindus? I don't hear these kind of arguments coming for things happening in Bangladesh or Pakistan. Are their intentions really pure?
As an academician, I like to believe that the other party has always good intentions. I mean, if you attribute malintention to anyone, so then that's not a fair argument. So for example, if you look at the Hindutva, whatever arguments against Hindutva is always based on some potential mal arguments, right? Well, Hindus, though, you know, someday they will kind of start the genocide of the Muslims, and that's why they are bad. So it is not basically it's not a fair argument, I think. And I will not, even for my opponents also, the liberals, I will not tell them malevolent or anything like that. I will just take them as the right value, and that's how I have done that throughout the book. I never considered them that they are having any malintention or anything like that. Now other part you mentioned is about the global media. That is very interesting. So, I have done a survey for 3 years, 2020, 21, 22 from a global news stream database. And there I have actually got like around approximately 8,800 mentions of majoritarianism. So, it consists of not only newspapers, but also prominent theses and many other prominent citations, but this is the discourse in the civilized society, right. It is a global, and out of 1/5 of the cases, 4/5 of the cases, it is a majoritarianism has been used as a concept without particularly pointing the finger at a community, at least not apparent from the reading. 1/5 of the cases there is actually a majority that was actually implied, and I actually see what is that majority. And you are right, 80% of the cases it is the Hindus, at least 80% of the cases it is the Hindus of India. Now, of course, global population wise Hindus, I do not know, 15% or something. So, it is hard to believe me that they are responsible for 80% of all these things, but that is what the media is. I have actually called it a majoritarian Hindu paradox, and I have resolved it in my book also. I'll hold some suspense here. I mean, I would like the readers to read my book and get why this paradox happens.
Not coming from the book, but is this coming from that old philosophy of Western world of white supremacy, and they see only India as a threat or the Indians as a threat as they are currently rising financially, even in Europe, even in America. So, is this could be a reason? I may sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that's what I feel at least. I'll not ask you to comment on that. I'll come to my next question.
No, but I'll comment something.
Okay, sure.
So, first pointed fingers are at Hindus. Second pointed fingers are the Sinhalese, Sinhali Buddhists. Third pointed fingers are the whites actually, whites of America. Of course, I mean, I don't think in a way white racism is much of a problem as of now. So, there are other forms of racism that are bigger problems and other forms of theories that are bigger problems.
So, my next question is, if that majoritarianism concept is not the root cause of disharmony in Indian society, what alternate explanation do you offer for that?
So, basically if you look at the one thing, if you look at any of our traditions, Indian tradition, and also it is also true in the other traditions of the world largely, the root cause of any disharmony does not lie outside us, it lies inside us, right. If we have we call it in our tradition, we call it Ahimsa. If you have Ahimsa for someone, it will manifest, you can't stop it. Minority, majority, what difference does it make? If you have Ahimsa, it will cause problems, that is what it is, right. So, I call it, I basically call it, defined a term based on the sociological theories. I call it linear theory of social evolution, LTSE. What is a linear theory of social evolution? So, many dogmas or doctrines, they give some kind of a theory. I will explain with an example. That theory says basically the societal evolution happens in a linear way, growing of that doctrine, and this is first part of the theory. And second part, those who do not believe in dogma, they have to be otherized, they have to be sort of made inferior, they need to be treated inferior for their disbelief. So, one example I would give, so the seminal thing is started what I call political Christianity. So, if you look at political Christianity, what is the idea? I do not think political Christianity was started by Jesus, I think it is started by someone else. But anyway,
church maybe.
Maybe Paul, maybe church, I mean whoever it is, but the idea is Jesus is the first Christian, then the Christians are growing and eventually everybody will be Christian, right. That is the linear theory. If you are not a Christian, then you are essentially something inferior, right. So, the idea was you will go to hell. This is the to create. So, you will not go to hell based on your karma. You will go to hell because you disbelieve in this theory. That is pretty much it, right. Now, political Christianity, I say in my book itself, is not very active force in the West anymore. But if you look at its offshoots, they are actually causing all the problems. If you look at this other LTSEs, they are actually causing all the disharmony. So, if I have faced myself, so this Marxism for example, right, it came in a Christian society. It has the same kind of a theory, right. Marx is the first egalitarian kind of person who has given this scientific dialectical materialism or whatever they call it, and it will grow over time, it will eventually conquer, right. So, I grew up in Bengal, and I used to read science fictions in my childhood that say, well, we are going there, eventually we will be in a communist globe where from North Pole to South Pole everybody will be communist, everybody will be equal, so good, so fantastic, right? So you see the linear theory, and those who are not doing, succumbing to this theory, they are sort of bad persons. So my father, he was sort of like lapsed communist. Naturally, this is the problem with anyone lapsed. Once you become lapsed, you sort of feel it's your moral duty to correct your one's fellow mates. So my father used to usually correct the communists. Well, this is the thing you are saying, there are some philosophical problems. What he was saying is very mild. It's a very philosophical way of saying things. But he becomes an enemy. Why does he become an enemy? I did not understand this that correctly. Because he is violating their idea of linear theory. So from their theory, they understand all the educated people, they have to be Marxist over time. And my father being, no, he is a police person and all these things. He must be a Marxist. How come he be other way around, from Marxist to other way around? So this is a problem. He's a disbeliever. So this is the idea, and this creates huge intolerance in society. That's what I claim. It's my hypothesis, and I have actually tested it.
And in your book, you have defined Hinduism as non-LTSE, but political Islam and political Christianity as LTSE. Though you have answered it already in the previous answer, but I would still want you to elaborate upon it a little bit. Why is there this asymmetry?
You see, this category of religion that creates Hinduism in the same bracket as Islam or Christianity, it was not done by the Hindus. It was actually done by the Christian missionaries in the 19th century. So they came here and they see that there is something here, people call it dharma and other things, but these people are known Hindus. No Hindu called that these are my beliefs, this is my Hinduism, nobody called. But they have to categorize that a religion. Therefore, they can show it is inferior to Christianity. That is the project, right? And they are doing it all the best of the intention, because they see Christianity is the solution. So these people have to be understood, right? They have to be made to understand that this is the wrong path. So how do you see this is the wrong path? So because you will contrast it as a religion to Christianity and show it's bad, right? And this is the reason they started it. Now that's why it is wrong for us to believe that the Hinduism is in the same bracket as the other religions, and this is not my theory. There is a very reputed scholar, S.N. Bal Gangadhar. He was actually in the Ghent school, Ghent University in Belgium. He was also the chair of the American Academy of Religions, and he has a very seminal hypothesis that Hinduism is not a religion. In fact, no pagan doctrine is a religion. That's what the idea is. And so that's why it is not comparable to the other things. And if you look at really the data, in the sense that before Christianity, anything is to be called pagan, right, in Europe. And if you look at these pagans, all the pagan doctrines, nobody had a linear theory. And this is not I am saying, this is Yuval Noah Harari is saying in his book Sapiens. He is saying this, if you look at the Greek historians, if you look at the Chinese historians, they all believe in some kind of a cyclicality, right? In Hinduism we also say sometimes dharma will rise, then adharma will rise, again dharma will rise, right? We have this Chatur Yuga, Satya, Treta, Dapar, Kali, and then again Satya, and Treta, and Dapar. So this is a cyclicality. It is not, if you look at the Hindu rituals, again, there is a puja for dharma, there is a puja for adharma. There is a puja for Lakshmi, there is a puja for Alakshmi. There is a puja for Vidya, there is a puja for Avidya. So we believe that world is not a linear place. It is made of both. Sometimes this will rise, sometimes that will rise, and we kind of worship the nature from that point of view, right? But if you look at this Christianity, it actually started this linear theory in the sense of a faith.
So Kaushik ji, question is, what evidence or scientific tests support your assertion that majoritarianism is an unscientific concept? Also, could you explain how you have integrated interdisciplinary research into your work to challenge this prevailing academic paradigm, and how does your explanation offer a better point of view?
Okay, that's very nice. So if you look at the majoritarianism people, I mean those who believe in majoritarianism, it's a hypothesis for them. It's a theory for them. They don't offer any evidence. So I'm a student of science originally, yeah. So I actually cracked IIT some point in time. So I have a lot of respect for science. So I actually wanted to see that I don't take any theory as a face value. It has to be sort of contrasted with the other possible alternatives and see how it is. So I gave this idea of LTSE not from actually economics. It's a lot of study on psychology. If you look at this book, Viktor Frankl, this book is called Man's Search for Meaning. Right?
After
Concentration.
World War II
concentration camp, right? It's a very famous book. I mean, everybody should read the book, I think. But so there he mentions one incident. What happens? One of his co-inmate, in these prison camps, lots of rumors going around. So there's a date. I forgot the date, but that time, supposedly by that date, the army is supposed to come and liberate this concentration camp, right? And this did not happen. And his inmate, he really believed in it. The moment did not happen, he was otherwise healthy. But he suddenly perished, right? He got some disease and 1 or 2 days he died. This shows in our psychology, we take theory sometimes very, very seriously. And that becomes our reality, right? This is like, you can say, alternative reality, parabastab. There are different ways to say that. Now, this LTSE, so this idea, this is how the idea of my LTSE, right? This creates a psychologically a theory. It's an extreme example I gave from Viktor Frankl, but roughly it happens because this theory is your existence, Marxism your existence, right? So anything contrary to that is sort of like wrong, right? Sort of like not a reality. Now, this is psychology literature. Then I also studied a lot of the themes studied in the psychology literature, how basically people actually lie. People actually lie for their end purpose. And this is called, there is a name for that, it is called the dark triad. So basically there are 3 things, it is called narcissism, Machiavellism, other name is not coming to my mind. So these 3 things together, they call it, emotions, they call it dark triad. And then they basically, this actually manipulate, this makes people manipulate others and tells lies. And I have given a lot of examples how this acts and all these things. I have actually integrated psychology, economics and political science in all these things in this thing. So what I have done, I look at the basically first very extreme events of intolerance, these genocides, right? There are many genocides. I look at the top 10 of them that is discussed in Western media, right? I did not choose my tale of the genocides. And what do we see? We see that almost all the genocides except one which happened in Rwanda in 1994, most people were almost unaware, not participated, they did not participate in the genocide at all. I take one example. If you look at this, this is very close to my heart. So it is this Bengali genocide in 1971 by the Pakistani army, right? So this Sam Manekshaw movie, right? It has also shown to an extent. Sam Bahadur. Now there what happened? Basically there are almost 1 to 2 lakh of Pakistani troops. They came to Bangladesh and they do extreme brutality, right? They killed almost 3 million people, 80% probably Hindus, and women was gang raped. It's very sad tale. But if you look at the idea, can you really blame the Pakistani people for that? The answer is unfortunately no. Pakistani people, they did not consent that do the genocide. They never said that, right? It is the army who followed the orders. But one thing is definitely apparent, and you can go through these memoirs of the generals there. They have this idea of LTSE. So they actually said that, well, this is the idea of the political Islam on which Pakistan is born, and these Bengali people, they are not actually doing their best in the interest of this political Islam, so they have to be taught a lesson. So LTSE example is there everywhere, but there is no example of the majority being involved. If you look at the Nazi genocides, most Germans were not involved. The German army was also not involved. It is mostly the SS guards, right? Basically the people, these third-rate criminals, right? Basically Hitler made this group, and they are only capable of this genocide. Even they used to get depressed when they used to kill people. So it is all these genocides, it did not happen because the majority kind of chased the minority, not like that. In the Rwanda case, 10% people were involved. That's the estimate say. I can't say this is not the majority or this is a majority. I don't know exactly way. So I wrote maybe as the conclusion. Maybe majority was involved. I don't know. But the other cases, there is no way you can implicate the majority. But in all these cases, there is a LTSE that you can see. This is the big events. Now, if you go to the small events, again I have a framework, and I have shown then basically in the economics framework, it is a framework based on Hayek, a very celebrated economist, Nobel laureate of course. And in this framework basically we understand that if there is a lot of persecution against a community, that community slowly go away. So the population proportion wise, that community will kind of go down, right. And there is a case when you can see whether majoritarian hypothesis is different than the LTSE, and that case is when the minority has an LTSE, but the majority does not, right, majority may not. Then basically the majoritarian hypothesis wise the minority proportion should go down, but if you look at my LTSE hypothesis, the majority population should go down. And one test bed is where we live in India, and we have seen in India basically the Hindu population is steadily falling from the independence onwards. But it is in the exceptional case, only case being interpreted to my convenience. Well, no, there are other cases. Look at Nepal, same thing is happening. Look at Lebanon, same thing happened. There again the Christians, they are orthodox, did not have really an LTSE, and then the other people were Arabs, nationalists and socialists, they had one, and the kind of happened the way they wanted. And if you look at the other case like Tibet, same thing, same story is true, right. So basically the majority Tibetans, they are going down.
Even the era of Islamic invasion, we can, I think.
So I did not go that far again, because the idea of the majoritarianism actually holds, where basically the people can vote, there is a sense of democracy and majority can actively take part in politics. So I have given a very, very objective way of looking at, I did not go by my perception.
So again, given your background in science and economics, sir, what prompted your interest in researching and writing about this social issue, and which would I think fall under domain of sociology?
It can fall under sociology, definitely, but it will also fall under political science, and I have used economic theories, so could fall under economics. But the idea is basically, I used to be a very, very passionate thinker, and this is the one reason I am a statistician actually. I did my masters and bachelors and masters in statistics, but I switched to economics because I was very, very keen on the social issues. And mostly when I was young, I saw the economics kind of determines the society. I mean, this is of course not entirely true, but this is also true to a large extent also. But then if you look at these social theories, their idea of the reality is not what I see around me, right? I mean, that's what I felt. And if you go back to the history of science, if you go back to history of science, I think the most important figure of science is Galileo. Before Galileo, there is the Aristotelian theory. What is the Aristotelian theory? So you take two balls, one 100-pound, one 1 pound. You drop them. The 100-pound ball will fall 100 times faster than the 1 pound thing, right? When someone told me this in childhood, this is the theory, I said, yeah, this must be the case. This is heavier ball, this should go faster, right? And there is no wonder that this theory was the most dominant theory for 1.5 millennia, right? Aristotle was 1500, more than that even, ago than Galileo, right?
Sometime BC.
Sometime BC, right? So basically, this is sort of the most dominant theory, right? Now question is, why then this theory lingered so much? Because Europe sort of fell into a dark age and they lost the scientific consciousness. Science is not about theory, science is about reality. If the reality doesn't match, you have to throw your theories away. That's what the science is, and that's what the Galileo did. He threw both the balls from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right, and he showed that ball almost fell simultaneously, right. So this is the idea, right, this reality has to be explained by the theory, not theory has to be constructed to sort of move around the way from the reality. And this is what perplexed me. And that is why I thought that there must be something seminally wrong with the social sciences. Now problem is, if you are really sociologist, if you do not really believe in this or political scientists who do not believe in these dominant theories, it is not easy to survive the discipline. I am an economist, I do empirical work, I could survive, but I took it as a second job to study this as why they are differing. So I did not really curse the opponent, I really do not take them wrong or something, I take them in the good intention, and this is exactly my point of the entire book. I never dispute the good intention, I already say that they are good intention people. So I studied the theories. What came out is their theories actually lack this idea of scientific testing and the idea of the reality, there are alternative ways of the reality, let us test the different ways. So that culture is sort of missing. I would say this is missing, because liberalism is sort of like religion. Well, not sort of, it is actually modern religion according to Yuval Noah Harari. He wrote again in Sapiens, liberalism, Nazism or communism, these are modern religions. They impose their whims, and if you do not agree, you are cancelled. So, this is the only way someone from as an outsider I could do this research, because the insiders, they may not be able to survive for doing this kind of research.
In your book, somewhere you also mention challenges in engaging and dissenting the perspectives within academia. So, how would you respond to the potential backlash that would come from the academic institution who have been studying this in their humanities department from very long time now?
Yeah, so I see in a way, so one thing I will always appreciate, if my opponents, they read the book and they wrote, why I am wrong, I will appreciate that, whether I believe, whether I agree or not, because at the end of the day, they are trying to engage, they are trying to work with me. But what happens, I wrote the mail, when I got this link for this book in Amazon, I sent to everybody, even my left and liberal friends also. I send them, So, some of them, okay, I have to give it to that, what is due. Some of them actually did engage, and possibly they are going to read it. There are some sense and they are reading it. But there are others who said, well, we do not read trash. So, this person has not read anything about the book, just saw the image or title of the book, and he is saying, I will not read it. This is heresy, right? This is blasphemy. What you are writing is heresy, blasphemy, I will not read it. So, backlashes could come or something like that, may or may not come. But what I feel that the right thing has to be done. In some sense, we academicians, we should not just seek a career. The society is giving us money to study knowledge. That means we should actually actively discard the pseudo knowledge, we actively should actually promote knowledge, and we should promote harmony and peace in society. Now, these theories are the biggest obstacles to that, that is what I am trying to argue that. So, that is why I thought it is my duty. I might have taken some personal life, might have got some somewhere, it did not, it did not prosper exactly how my colleagues or other people, they have kind of prospered their life, but that is okay. And if the backlash comes, that is also okay. I think I have to do whatever is done by the theory. Of course, I know pretty one thing. If you look at from Galileo to Iron Hershey Ali, they have suffered much more, way more than I would ever suffer for saying this. So, I am okay. I am happy with that. I will not say I am a victim or anything like that. I have got an opportunity for truth. I am trying to spread the truth.
Great. That's a great thought indeed. I think more of our academicians should learn that. So, next question that I have for you is, can you explain the concept of cultural Marxism as you discuss it in your book, and how it relates to the origin and evolution of liberalism?
It's a very interesting question. Basically, cultural Marxism now has become a conspiracy theory. If you go to Wikipedia, there is an entry, conspiracy theory of cultural Marxism. But it was actually in Wikipedia 2014, and then the liberals, they got more and more dominant, and they have cancelled this idea. But very, very interestingly, this is an old idea. In 1977 or so, one Polish philosopher, historian, his name is Leszek Kolakowski. He actually a very famous person, he got many awards. He published a book, The Main Currents of Marxism, Oxford University Press, 3 volumes. And there he discussed how Marxism, originally it is a kind of, as we know, it is a class struggle between the haves and have-nots based on economics. And then it was put in the cultural sphere by Gramsci, a young Italian communist, Antonio Gramsci, and Frankfurt School, a group of communist, a group of, I would say, leftist academicians, and they actually developed all the theories. Now, what happens, these theories, so basically if you want me in detail, little more detail, so there is one book is published already by Rajiv Malhotra, The Snakes in the Ganga, he has given some details. But basically Antonio Gramsci, he wrote a lot when he was in prison in Italy. It's called Prison Notebooks. At least that prison had notebooks to write, I mean, Savarkarji, when he was in Andaman, he could not have the notebooks, of course. But anyways, those notebooks, they actually delineate a lot of his thoughts. Now, these thoughts have these elements, and also the Frankfurt School is also there. Now, what happened? The Germany, the Nazis, they came to power. Now, most of the proponents of these theories were Jews. And when Hitler did his anti-Semitism campaign, so these people, they had to leave. And some of them, because they are brilliant, they got refused in the prominent universities in America, right? So Harvard, for example, it got this it got this person called Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse was one disciple or one kind of person very closely associated with the founders of the Frankfurt School, Horkheimer. So basically, he then came to Harvard and he started the various doctrines, and they actually call themselves liberalism, because it is sort of to contrast them against the communism, which is to be called totalitarian. So they call, we are not totalitarian, we are liberals, and that's how this idea of left liberalism, as we know today, it started that time. So the theory is so there is a remarkable scholar whose name is James Lindsay. James Lindsay is a mathematician, but he is a PhD in mathematics. But he wanted to study this, and he did many menial jobs and everything to survive. Again, I told you, it cannot be done by the insiders now. And he has done amazing work, how you can trace each theory of the present day liberalism to Marxism or to cultural Marxism. So he has a website, New Discourses. He have a YouTube channel also, New Discourses, and he has also a website, New Discourses, where he has a dictionary of each left liberal term. And each term he has shown how it coming from that theory. So I think, I have worked only in the Indian context, in the context of developing a social sciences based on Indian experience. He has done his work to trace cultural Marxism. We are, I think, almost same age. So I think I will refer people to go to James Lindsay's work and see how it kind of spans out. It is not there in my book, but you can see it.
But to my understanding, even calling them social theories is wrong in certain way, because they were later on purely developed as political theories to capture power or to grab power. Is it correct, or my understanding is wrong?
The idea of the good intention. When you say theory, we attribute the good intention to them. They are trying to explain the word in their capability, right? And why people do certain things, we are not sure, right? Am I giving this interview just for the sake of truth? I will say so. But my opponents can say, well, this guy wants to do something else to his ulterior motive. Now, if you can give malevolence to anyone. So I will not give malevolence to my opponents. I will just give their good intention, because I want a dialogue between different parts of the different thoughts, processes, and this spectrum. See, this process of dialogue has been cancelled sort of by liberals, but I don't want to do that. So a part of the dialogue happens when you say, okay, you are also good intention, I am also good intention. Now let's see arguments, let's place each other, right? That's the Indian tradition. We used to have this idea of the public debate. First there is a Purva Paksha, you describe the other side, then you present your side, Uttar Paksha. I am just doing the same part.
But is it fair to call them social theories?
Theories need not be proven, right? So if you look at the theory of evolution, of course there is a lot of support for that and everything, but it's at the end of the day, it's a theory, right? I mean, you
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So again, my next question is from that only. What specific principle or values do you prescribe for achieving social harmonies, and how do they differ from these Western social theories like liberalism or DEI, known as diversity, equity and inclusivity?
Very nice question actually. So my prescription is Satya and Ahimsa. Now this is our age-old philosophy is Satya and Ahimsa. In Mahabharata, so there is basically the entire idea of the epic, of the story, of the history, whatever you call it, Mahabharata, is based on a contrast of different values. And the base values it says is Satya and Ahimsa, and among that, if you have to prefer one, it is Ahimsa. Now these values were passed down through the ages. When Buddha came, he has said the same thing. The Buddha said Pragya and Karuna, which is another way of saying Satya and Ahimsa. Then if you go down the line, Mahatma Gandhiji, I mean, I know people have a very sometimes negative opinion of Gandhiji's politics. I have also nuanced view of that. But I would say that he was a great teacher. The things he said as a teacher was kind of is good. What he tried to do, he did not try to make India another America or another Britain. That's the beauty of Gandhiji's teaching. He said that our teaching has to be founded on our own cultural understanding, and this is why he put his idea of Satya and Ahimsa. Now, problem with a little bit to his idea is, a lot of the times Gandhiji's Ahimsa was not based on our own experience. It is based on basically he has his understanding from Rousseau and other people, some Western Russian Christianity and other things. But the ideas were correct, I mean Satya and Ahimsa. So then if you look at this idea, these are experiential idea, right? Should I speak you the truth? This is experience, I have to agree to it. Now let us look at my liberal friends. They have this idea of equity, they have idea of diversity, right? They have the idea extremely, they like equality, right? Is it experiential? So the idea actually it is not. If I talk to my liberal friends, some of them they go to foreign, right? Every year they make a foreign trip. It's sort of like their status symbol, right? They put the photos and everything like that. So definitely they are having much more money than anyone else is possible. Then they sort of say, well, I believe in equality. Now it is possible. I am not giving, again taking the well intention away from them. It is possible they still believe in equality in a very abstract sense, which I call the theoretical idea. But in their experience, they are not going for equality. Had they, then they should not take so many foreign trips and all these lavish lifestyle, right? They should come in a very small way.
Now, as soon as you have money, it naturally is not possible. If you cannot be treated like somebody who is begging on the street.
Begging on the street,
once
right?
you have the money.
So
that equality idea.
That equality is gone. But this is the point of equality. It is a very, very theoretical idea. Those who say equality, they do not really practice it. But if you look at Ahimsa and Satya, these are practicable things. Let's take me today. If I do a very, so suppose someone says that I practice equality. I mean, most of the people, I mean, if you are a Vinoda Bhave or something, then maybe you are right. But normal people, these liberal friends who said we believe in equality, they are just, I don't think they are very serious about it. It's a theoretical idea for them. It's not a practice value. But Satya is a practice value. I have to speak you the truth, right? So this value I have to more, nobody is perfect. I know myself. I mean, I might be wrong in my own analysis, but maybe I speak 90% or more than that Satya. But still there is a scope for me to increase Satya by 10%, right? I cannot do it immediately, but this is the sadhana. This is the penance.
Work upon that.
This is work upon that, right? This is why the entire rituals, our rituals, they are based upon. The idea is you have to imbibe the idea of Satya and Ahimsa, right? So even when a mosquito comes, right, many of us, they will not hit it, right? They will just put it away, right? So this is like a sadhana, right? This mosquito bit you, but you don't kill him. So this is your Ahimsa. So that moment you are practicing it, you are doing something for it, and it makes you a better human being. It makes you understand the other's point of view. It makes you understand how people work, and that's how the harmony, social harmony can happen. It cannot happen by some slogans. That's utterly ridiculous.
Makes sense. Even those who preach diversity and equality, even they might not have that exact pathway where how to practice it.
Practice it, right? Again, actually,
it's a confused
word. In fact, those who say diversity and other things, they actually don't believe that some of the communities they say want to be uplifted, they are not capable of doing that. This is what we always reject in Indic thinking.
Katni or karni mein farak.
No, another thing is, we say everybody has Brahma, right? Aham Ayamatma Brahma. The Brahma, this is the supreme power, is inside us. You do penance, you will uplift yourself, right? This is what Narayan Guru said when he uplifted his community in Kerala, right? This is what Vivekananda said. So you cannot really blame people. That's what wrong. You should uplift them by getting them to adhere to more and more dharma. It's a tapasya, but it takes time, but it has a permanent effect. And this is exactly why Indian civilization survived after so many barbaric assaults, because we try to practice them. So it is in us and it stays with us over generations. It does not deplete so soon.
So my next question, in your book you equate ideologies like Nazism, communism and liberalism with political Islam and political Christianity. I think you have answered this to some extent, but again I would put this question specifically. Can you discuss the rationale behind this comparison between political Islam and political Christianity to these theories of Nazism and communism?
Very interestingly, it is again, I am not the first person to say that. It is Yuval Noah Harari who wrote it same thing in his book Sapiens, chapter 12. He said this communism, fascism, Nazism or liberalism, these are religions just like Islam or Christianity. He also equated maybe Buddhism or Hinduism in that league because he is a macro historian. He did not study these Indic thoughts that deeply, but the basic idea is he added. Now, of course, as I said that Balaganga, the Balu, he said that this is not Hinduism is not a religion. Christian thinkers like Tom Holland, a very famous Christian writer, he wrote Hinduism is not a religion, Christianity is the first religion, and there is a neo-Hinduism hypothesis that is going around the circle now. Then they also say, well, there is no religion of these people they have. So, what I am saying is not controversial. It is actually a large part academic opinion only.
So, in your book, you have very clearly differentiated between racism and casteism. For our viewers, can you shed some light upon that?
Sure. I said, okay, racism is what is casteism. This is very you have to understand. See, anything can be anything in abstract level. We have to say how it is mean. So, when you say racism, when you look at this America, right, both the Americas is full of red Indians and these whites, they took it over, right. There is a big genocide that happened there, I described it well. But the idea was the land was belonged to only the other people, the whites took it over that time and the idea was to take it over. So, basically it is a linear theory, it is displacing the other races. So, the theory is whites will grow because they have superior gene or whatever it is, the other races will go down. If you look at casteism, what is it? The Brahmins, do they say that we will grow and the Sudras they will vanish and vanish? I mean, maybe one or two people might be there, bigoted people, but largely the castes I meet, they say we are superior. That is not a very, that is basically everyone's statement. Everyone says I am the best. The problem, it becomes problematic when people say I am the best and if you do not agree, I will treat you badly.
Others should not exist.
Others should not exist and they should, they'll put it in inferior status and eventually go down. But that is what I don't see in the castes. If they are, then of course they are also as bad as the racists. I don't have a problem, doubt about it. But generally the castes, they say that, well, we are kind of better, suppose I am come from a musician caste, right. There is a Gandharva communities, right. And then I say that, yeah, I am a better musician because my fathers, grandfathers, they are all musicians and I do better music. Now, you might dispute it, but the problem is they does not show any idea of displacing others. And if that does not happen, then you cannot say it a linear theory in the term of the book. It is possible that it is there is a certain sense that having I am the best is not a good thing. Actually, in our thinking, civilizational thinking, we call ego, aham, as the problem of everything, but it also acknowledges the aham will be there in everyone. You cannot really take it away, vanish it away. That's not it.
You have to go through it.
You have to go through a process, sadhana, tapasya, to make the aham go away. It does not happen automatically. So that's what I will also say. So of course we know that it may not be the right thing on all these things, but it will not suddenly go away because you say something. So what happens many times, there is a casteism, you try to vanish it, it reappears in another form. So I give you an example. In China, for example, China there is an agrarian society and there are castes like us. So there is a good article, I think Aurobindo Nilakandan, he did it in Sarajyo on the caste system in China. And then basically this communists came and then under Mao and they took over. Again they created again a caste system. So basically party loyalist one class, the dissident hostile another class, in the middle there are some categories. In North Korea communist society, there are 52 castes are there and they are kind of ranked also. So I am saying that this is there in this book by the girl with 7 names. He's basically a North Korean girl who got out of the country and kind of traveled in China and then eventually settled in South Korea. So this book is there, you can look it up. So I am trying to say that the moment you just say equality and everything, it doesn't happen automatically. It takes a lot of sadhana and tapasya, and that's what we say, that we have to make ourselves better, and it is also idea of time in some sense. Sometimes it requires a lot of diversification in different professions, and then maybe professions can arise, and sometimes it requires more uniformity, then maybe the caste system will go away. But it is not a basically a system like racism where other people will be removed or something like that.
But in other interviews with I have had with our few of other speakers, they clearly try to demarcate that casteism is an external term which has been superimposed like many things by colonials on us, and our system was entirely different. That was Jati Varna Kula system. So isn't it again a colonial giving that they tried to put casteism just like racism, that the way things that they did to American and African society, Native American African society, the way they enslaved them, they superimposed this theory on Indians through casteism.
So,
isn't that again
no, that is to an extent what you are saying makes a lot of sense, because originally the idea of the caste started in the Spanish colonies in the South America. No, it is mostly in the Spanish word.
In India,
it came through Portuguese, but
right.
It is actually a Spanish word. Also, it's Portuguese also, but later day. But they basically they used to practice something called miscegenation. So basically, so whites are one class. Then whites and these whites who are marrying the red Indians, so they are another class, and this kind of categories and privileges like that. So that part is given. But then when it came to us and our Jati system, which is basically an autonomy of the different social groups, they tried to impose on us. Now I agree on one hand it is a colonialism, but also it is another hand,
it's a reality.
It is a reality that society cannot be homogeneous in India. Society was actually composed of different heterogeneous elements, and they are living in harmony. There is no problem with different jatis. Before the Europeans came, actually before this census happened between 1871 and 2001, where the castes were kind of given different legal privilege. So there is a book by Nicholas Dirks, it's called Castes of Mind, and where he actually said a lot of things, how the census rigidified the caste. It was a local phenomenon, it became a more pan-Indian phenomenon, and big large castes evolved and they consolidated their power, and it became imaginary communities in some sense. So there is no simple narrative of the caste, and the point that caste will go away just because we are saying, that is again a very shallow kind of opinion. So if you look at my colleagues, they may come from different castes. They are all professors. Now, will their children, will they drive auto rickshaws? I don't think that's not going to happen almost all the cases, right? Will they marry the people of the drivers? I mean, will their children, will they marry really the children of the drivers? That's not going to happen in the most of the cases. So when we say really we are not caste, we actually don't take it very seriously, right? See, we have some idea of the class and other issues. So it is a complex idea, and of course a caste system, Jati Vyavastha that we used to call it, was probably not as rigid as it is imagined in the times.
They were living in harmony, I think that's
the idea was an autonomy. So you see, in human society, you will never have perfect harmony. You will always have some conflicts, right? We are actually at secular conflicts. Suppose this jati's interest is actually pervading other jatis, so there will be some conflict or something like that. But there is no persistent linear theory like conflict in Indian kind of thinking. That's what kind of I would like to say.
So that brings me to the last question that I have, Kaushik ji, for you. What do you hope readers will take away from your book, and how do you envision it contributing to ongoing discussions about social harmony and further academic discourse?
So first thing is the readers, they have to understand one thing. If it is a monarchy, the monarch needs to know about everything. If it is a democracy, every citizen needs to know what we are doing. Some people parroting the slogans of equality and harmony, justice and whatever it is, doesn't mean they are really doing it. Their theories may be doing the exactly other way around. These slogans might be a diversion to their ultimate sort of agenda, reality, where the agenda will be taking it away, right? So that's why my readers, I want them to understand the implications, right? People actually, if you look at the politics is a lot of run from these theories, these academic theories. They create kind of political parties, and these political parties, they run election. So unless you judge them, you will be failure as a voter. I mean, we are saying that everybody should vote, but everybody should be knowing whom they are voting for, what they are voting for, right? That is one thing, of course, as a political theory, book on political theory, I would like to say that thing. Secondly, I also want them to understand that the social sciences that are taught, this is a case study I have given them, very highlighted it, but a lot of them are based on this kind of unscientific theories, and we need to reform these social sciences so that these social sciences will enrich people in their lives. They will contribute positively to be developing real harmony between different people, different communities. That is what we have to ensure. and that cannot happen unless there is a popular opinion for that. So my book is dedicated towards that only.
Thank you, Kaushik sir, for this wonderful session. I am sure all our viewers have learned a lot, and thank you everyone for watching this. You will find the link for the book in the description, and this book is available on Amazon, and it has been published by Garuda Prakashan, and the book's name, again I will reiterate, is The Majoritarian Myth: How Unscientific Social Theories Create Disharmony. It's a very interesting and fresh take, and I am sure all of you will enjoy it. Thank you.